Welcome from my side. From a procedure like mentioned, I would guide you a little bit and do it mainly live, that you can see how easy it's working. Of course, we're focusing on the order to cash process, but of the easiness, I will start with a part of it. It's the invoicing process. So we will take a look into it and with all the steps, how we get the data in and how we do the analysis to identify some, improvements capabilities. So let me quickly start and share my screen. So I have to select the right one. So I think everybody should my screen right now. So what I'm using to improve the order to cash process is the called technology process mining. Maybe some people know from you already that. Maybe some people know, but don't. But I will guide you really step by step. You see what is needed to identify improvements very quickly. For the basic, what we need, of course, we need from an IT system. It could be like ERP system like SAP, Oracle, Dynamics, whatever of the market. There's different vendors available, and they usually provide log files. And if I show that quickly, it could be like a log CSV file where we have all the informations inside what the system provides. And just need some of them. We will go through, but you see, there could be cryptical one, but there's a lot of data inside. And our tool will transform that in insights that we can really identify improvements for saving costs, make it quicker for the customer or whatever. So in that case, let's bring this file into the system and you will see how easy it is. So if we say a new project here, it's the invoicing and add. And now we already working on the biggest hurdle. We need to bring this file into that. So I can easily drag and drop or search, and then the system is analyzing that in the first step, and then I can do the mapping so that our system understands what data field belongs to what. So you see, everything is made for business users. We don't need any scripting or make it really complex. It's asking me now, what's the invoice ID, order number, or whatever, where we can identify the unique transaction of a process. Then we need a timestamp. If there are more available, we can select all of them. So that's possible here. And then the last minimum what we need is the event. So in the system, of course, somebody is entering a data in invoice, somebody's approving that, somebody is sending that out, maybe somebody's triggering a reminder. These are the events were also stored in the log file, and we select them as an activity. And the pretty nice thing, if we have additional data, like what I would like to place today, is like if we have any kind of costs, if we have maybe also the sum of the order, or we want also to benchmark a little bit this bit on the entities or location who are executing that, we can easily enter this as well. And you see in the next step, we have the important one, and now we just define how we take the costs. So the costs are based on the task. Every task has their own costs, so we can define also the unit add. So we place the value of the order. That's of course based to each case, and the same one, replacing a unit. And the last, what we need to define is the entity. So that's also always based per each order. It's executed in the country, and that's it. Even if I see what maybe there's a cryptical, if I go back to the value, we see there's just value. We can just relabel that like to the order sum to make it more clear. And now total cost, order sum, and the important one. And now it's working. So and like I really mentioned, that was really the biggest hurdle what we have to do to start with. The rest is done everything automatically. We will provide it by first dashboards. We can insight, and that's why companies also decide for iGrafx, they don't need a lot of trainings and a lot of preparation, big IT projects with a pre-preparation time of months and so on. You will see, we will find the first 3 use cases in these 30 minutes, and I will show additional one as well. But that's what I want to show you. You don't need a very big maturity level or anything. If you have an ERP system, you can jump in and directly investigate and find improvements. And that could be really helpful for your company, for your career, to improve the process as well. Maybe quickly show, still is loading, it's close to the end, but if we take a look to the process itself, and that's maybe what everybody in your company has, is like a visualization of the process in the form of a BPM diagram. So we see there's one variant, how we executing the process. Maybe there could be a second or third if we have like an approval with a gateway, but it's quite simple how we think our employees or colleagues executing the process. And to verify that, we're using this kind of technology to see, yeah, is it really like that? So it's close to the end. And then we can jump in. And we will really then take a look why it's inefficient, where we have a problem, where we can improve also the cost perspective, and so on. And yeah, like mentioned, it could be SAP, Oracle, Dynamics, or other tools as well. Usually everyone provide log files, what we can analyze there. So let's wait a second. I think it should be close to the end. Otherwise, we will do a plan. Oh, it's good. So saving the data. And now it's preparing the dashboard and the view of the reality. So one more second. And yeah, we will focus now on the first points. Very classic ways in the invoicing process is like where we have the most expensive activities, where we could maybe have opportunities to save money, or to check about the cash flow where we may be struggling. So it's done. Now it's already. So we didn't. Yeah, we waited about 3-4 minutes. You see that's like more than 200,000 activities happening. So we have like 23,000 orders what are progressed. So, and if I go back on the dashboard, now we see directly we have already some insights. And what's for me interesting, very interesting on the first view, I show you the BPM diagram where we have just this one variant. But in reality, it's showing up. There's like 263 variants how people are executing the invoicing process. And that, of course, I can customize. I will show you as well. But let's now go really to the next step. We're going in the left side in the analysis part. And now we see, oh, let's look a little bit more chaotic. If I zoom in a little bit, so you see we have to start, we have to create invoice, send invoice, and then we see already different ways that it could be completely different actions, what we are not aware, but also what we here very quickly see, the due date happens before the payment is processed. So we have delays. We also see bottlenecks. In average, this path take close to 3 weeks. So it's pointing out directly also inefficiency. But I mentioned we want to check the costs right now first. Sorry. What we can do, and that's already prepared, because we load the data in, we can check the costs. So we don't need to prepare that. The system provides this option because we selected that on the data onboarding. Total cost. So now we see also from the darkness of the activity, what are the most expensive steps in average. Of course, there are most of them, the first one not, but what we can also quickly switch, because on the number of frequency, it could be differently. So we take the total cost. And now we see some steps are more often executed and generating cost in total. So like checking the due date, sending reminders, payment procedure checking. There's created additional costs. So, and now we want to investigate maybe why, where, and so on, and try to find what we can do to improve that. So I switched it here, but we can here go on the right side as well, that we say, okay, now let's find the variance what causing a lot of cost. So we see this variant 255 cost by execution 2,000 euros. And what we can do, quickly select them, place that in the filter, and then we see the flow, what happened. So we see that the sent invoice there was some turnaround, but we see also the send reminder again was executed several times. We see that here by this goes out and out. This is classic reworks. And I think everybody agree with me, that's not efficient if we have to do that several times. And so that's maybe the reason also because it's increased by the price. And then if we look in deeper, we will identify that's a still manual process that people need to trigger this the reminder to remind the customer to pay the invoice, and the cost causes costs here. And that is a potential where we can say, that steps makes maybe sense to automate whatever. If we use low code RPA, like a digital worker who's taking that full automatically, that's what we can investigate that. But we also get additional informations like where it happens. So we see that this use case is just happening in Toulouse. So that could be also a problem by missing knowledge of the employees, where we can then spend trainings to improve that. So that's where we can see also different impacts very easily. So that was really one use case where we see, okay, there is an improvement of reducing the cost by maybe automating this step, because that's happened in the most times. If we go back, maybe just take this filter out and take old again. I mentioned also what is important for a company is the cash flow, so that we have the money to pay salaries, do investments, pay our own invoices. So we need that. And how we can identify if there's any problems. I would now do it a little bit more advanced, because we can build up the filter by step, but I will now define a business rule. So we have this rule all the time available, and we can call it all the time. And you will see if we go in the setting and define like a business rule, that's not a big thing. You don't need scripting as well again. So we add the business rule. We will call it like our cash flow check. And then what we want to check, of course, is if it's a delay, then it's logical that the first task is the due date. And then after that, the payment is processed. So that's the classic rule where I defined. That's the identification that we have in delay. So, and what you see right now, there's just, show me please all these instances would have minimum 1 day delay. I agree with you guys. You will say, well, 1 day to be too late, that's not a big thing. So we can also increase that maybe today, say 10 days. That's close getting to a half of months, but that's we want to check. So, and we validate. So we place this rule inside. Again, it takes a little bit time of calculating that. But if we do it that way, so we can call this rule at any time. And hopefully what you saw inside, again, and that's why a lot of customers going to iGrafx, that a business user can do that. So you don't need to call a script, build coding that, build it in, and so on. It's just defining that by drag and drop and selecting things. I can create this kind of specific view if we have any delays in the payment. And you will see right now, as soon as finished, we can call out and filter all these variants where we have this delay. And like mentioned, we're focusing just where we have the delay more than 10 days. So everything what's not shorter, we ignore that. So we're going back to the analyst page. And what we now calling here is at the filter, so the business rule, and now we have the drop down of all our filters what we have created. So we want compliant means we want to check this way. We want to filter out this way. And then if we enter that, so we see now a different view. And what you directly maybe see on the top left corner, that's very interesting on the first time, 10% of all the orders are delayed. So maybe you would say now, oh, it's not a big thing, it's fine. But we want now to maybe take a look. Every financial guy will say, okay, but if 10%, what means that in money? How much money cash flow we missing? And therefore, I need just to go on the right side and now take the other element, the order sum what we implemented. And then if I filter on that, you will see, well, it's maybe even, it sounds on the first not a big thing, but we see here 120K, here 20K in average, 20K. So it happens quite often, even here, up to 10% close, we lose 8K. And if we summarize that, that's maybe really a cash flow problem where it's impacting our business, that we have struggling to pay our own invoice or to do nice investments or something. And now we can then also again to check based on the impacts on which entity, where we have this problem. It's this maybe based on a specific product. Is this just related to a specific customer? But now we have also again the insights, and then out of that we can decide what would be the optimization out of it to improve that. So we can improve our cash flow here. A last thing, just in case of the efficiency, that's also very quickly in very quick insight, and don't take a lot of searching, is just to add a specific filter. What iGrafx provide from standard is the rework. So if we place a rework on all the cases and then again filter about where we have processes where we have to rework more than 2 times because they're changing the order, because we have to remind that, so that's taking much longer as we need it. Validate. And then we see again, and that's really maybe not so good if close 1/3 of all transactions need minimum 2 reworks to progress it totally. So that we have again inefficiency. And based on the costs again, we're leading here inside to the send reminders, what we prefer or before identified as a potential improvement for automation. Again, here pointing out that's how, delaying the process. We can also switch that on the duration. So we see also here how much the delay is. That's close to 3 days more. What are costs to proceed the process? And what I want to summarize quickly just here on this small invoice, we'll cover more use cases right now, but just here, what I want to point out, we took right now 50 minutes for load in the data and did 2 searches on where we have the most expensive steps, where we have maybe a problem with cash flow, or where we are most inefficient because we have the more and more reworks. And that's what we want to encourage you. If you see the potential, or you would like to or interest to do it same on your invoicing process, that's not a big deal. Because sometimes I hear always, oh, we are not mature enough or so on. The reality, if you are not mature enough, would mean you proceeding orders with really written forms. And I don't think so. If I could look here in the list, there's nobody in your company who is doing that. So it's really a big game changer, and also to the management, that if you drive that from a process management department, process excellence, process intelligence part, you can really create valuable, measurable value, where you can see really we can save money here, 30, 50, 500K somewhere, and drive that. And it could be, game changer for the company, but I think also personally for your career, if you bring such up topics and show that we really can improve the process internally in the company. And that's one more to say, if you're interested, feel free to come to us. We are happy to support doing a POV with you, a first proof of value, load in some data and see if we can find these reasons to argument the investment for a process mining solution in your company. And we're talking about, in reality, then maybe about 3 to 5 days the biggest hurdle is to get the IT log file, but as soon we have, it's going very fast. And of course, we are helping you if you say, I'm maybe not sure where I have to look. We have experienced guys, they're doing that more than 10 years. We know where to look and really identify some optimizations. So that was really, hopefully you get an idea about the effort for how much you have to spend to get this insights. But now let's switch also to the next level of the order to cash process. That's like the end-to-end. We was just looking now on the invoicing process, what is a part of it. And therefore, I have a prepared project. So we don't need to start it from the scratch. But we're taking here on the top our order to cash process. And here you also see directly what I mentioned before, a customized dashboard already. That means I can have based on my entities, how many transactions. Here we see just 62 variants, or we can have also from a compliance perspective, are all the processes compliant, or we have issues where we see some steps are overtaken and we have then a problem there. And now let's go inside in this one. If you see here the analysis, so that's like 70,000 orders executed. And now that's the flow, what we can do. And what we usually do, or we can quickly check, usually we check, so here's already bookmarked and prepared, that we say, okay, we don't want to focus on all the variants. There could be always exception, but we could look on our top 10 variants and where the order is already finished. So, and we're taking a look to that. That's maybe 50% of all our cases. And now we can jump in deeper and see if, like I mentioned, more locations are executing that because you're working international. We can then go down and see here, not by role, we're taking the entity, switching this view. And what I like is this bubble view, clicking on that. And that's pointing me out directly. Okay, we see UK, in the average duration, they need about 3 weeks and 3 days. We have US, they need 3 weeks and 1 day. And Japan is 2 weeks and 6 days. So that's really very efficient. And what we will do now is let's do a benchmark. Let's see what is the difference between UK and Japan on the real data. Not that we compare, of course, we could compare BPM diagrams as well, but the real data, what Japan is doing differently to UK. So what I do right now, go back and just this filter out, and we'll take my filters, the benchmark Japan. So I prepared some filters. You see it's taking just the location Japan, and again, my top variants. So that's my standard filters, what I call quickly. And we see, okay, they just covering about 10% of all transactions. So there's not a lot of business in Japan, but they're doing it the most efficient way. And another capability is right now, if I have analyzed UK, I can do now an overlay that I say, okay, I don't want to see what's different, so point me red out, and we're selecting UK and this one. And now we can have an overlay between UK and Japan. And everything what UK is doing differently is pointing out red because we said that's not compliant. So everything was not compliant is shown up red, so that we see, okay, where they're struggling, analyzing the order and then the credit check. And there's a lot of rejection. And that's made a cost problem, why that leads on the UK side much, much more time as the other one. But so that's from the efficiency point. But I know that now, and I can view to the left one, there we see also a red bar. And from a logical point, if we follow the step, order confirmation sent, then maybe we need an approval, and then we prepare the ship goods. But here we see we stepping over an activity, and that's a compliance issue. And now based on your industry, that could be a big thing because you get fines or there's somebody's tricking, and all these informations could be also very quickly identified. And yeah, and again, we have here the whole flow. Could be over several systems where you could also check on each system, the automation rate. A lot of things could be analyzed there, to reach on the next level. But hopefully you got already on the simple one, or the part of the invoicing process, how powerful it is to take mining on it and to drive that. And what I would like now to point out, like as a next step, we mentioned, so we identifying things, and so we can say, okay, we need an improvements for automation. What I would like to show, maybe a step between, can close that, this one I need. So here we have the order to cash process. And if we mine the data, so we have a lot of times, resources, all these informations are available. And what we will do, let's throw that in a process simulation. That means I can then really run that. Oh, let's reload quickly. I need to relog in. And that's, I think, really helpful also for the optimization then. If we run the simulation, we can, I will show it just in the trace mode that you see that things are happening there. But we can do changes and can see, okay, we have a problem in the production. So we can go inside and increase the number and then run the scenario and see how it's that really impacting the process. But if I go to the left side, so I did already some simulation scenarios. We see that here. And I can take a look, and that's what I really want to show you before you rush in automation projects. Let's evaluate and simulate it, how they really impacted. Because I have maybe two options for automation, a low-code automation or a full digital automation by RPA, like a bot, digital worker, and compare them. So we see the baseline, that's our current cost, TCO, manpower, but we just get 68 transaction in 3 months, what I simulated. But if we do that with low-code automation, we can increase that, but of course increase our costs. And if I say, okay, we definitely go for automation, but what is the best one? I could compare each other. And then maybe I identify another points, say, okay, that automation is not the best fit, it's that one. So that you can really select the best option for you to create this the quickest and highest ROI for you. And if you have this number, it's not, if the management asks you how much it will be getter, then you can really bring numbers and say, that's the return of invest. We will save this money over this time. And that's a completely different discussion with your management to run an automation project or something. If you say, well, I think we're struggling, we have delays, let's automate that. I think that's really hard to argument to the management to get some investments there, especially if the cash flow is lacking. But yeah, just to give you an idea, there could be a possible, or we recommend this step before you going really into optimization, evaluate and make a data-driven decision. I would pause here right now from the platform, but what I think will be interesting for you, also to get like the rest of use cases, what we can show and identify in the order to cash. Therefore, I would quickly hand over to you, Max, one more time, because I think you prepared a little bit more insights about another use cases in O2C.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christian. Thanks for walking us through. Love seeing the product every time. Can you just verify you can see my screen? Yep. All right, perfect. So thank you. And as Christian mentioned, he walked through a couple different use cases, quick ones that we saw in the tool. I'm just going to walk through a couple additional examples, and this is just a representative set. Of course, there's more things that you can improve, but these are some of the common ones that we see amongst our customers. So you can work to identify things like delayed invoicing. Maybe there's manual data entry. Maybe the departments aren't working well together. So there's a longer time between steps that you can identify. As Christian mentioned, one of the solutions to this would be to implement something like automation. And tackling this challenge, you could do things like improve your automation rate, drive down your day sales outstanding, and ultimately improve your cash flow. Another very common one is order errors. This leads to a lot of rework. Christian mentioned this as well, right? It also leads to low customer satisfaction because if the order isn't right, if they need to go back and forth, it takes longer to get their goods. You know, it's just a lose, lose, lose. So if you standardize that process a little bit, maybe do some work in the applications to make sure that the orders go in right the first time, maybe use catalogs more appropriately. You can do things like increase your customer satisfaction scores or your net promoter scores. Make sure that your three-way match between the invoice, the goods receipt, and the order all line up. And you can also make sure that you deliver on time and in full to your customers more regularly. Another one is credit holds. So Christian mentioned this, the credit check that the UK was doing that Japan that was slowing down the process for UK compared to Japan. You might understand that even for your best customers that do a lot of business with you, you're still consistently credit checking them or placing credit holds on them, even though they're ultimately going to pass, and you know that. So that's just unnecessarily slowing down the process. If you could consider readjusting your policy based on that data, if you can say, this group of customers is really high value customers with us, they do a lot of business, we should consider the policy a little bit differently for them. That's obviously going to improve your satisfaction with those customers. Again, your score, it's going to drive down the cycle time of the entire process because, again, you're not spending time doing those checks, and also increase the cash flow. If the goods get delivered sooner, you get paid faster, better cash flow. Another one is canceled orders. And some of this might be in your control, some of it might not, but either way, having the information helps you better plan. This could be because of long lead times, the delivery date is just going to be too far in the future. Customer doesn't accept that. Maybe it's due to a back order or something like that. There's a couple different things you can do. If it is a back order, maybe you actually need to look upstream and see if there are ways that we can improve the ordering process on our end or improve the production process on our end so that those goods will be ready. Maybe you have the option to expedite some orders. Again, if it's a high value client and you want to, or it's a high value order and you want to make sure that particular one doesn't get canceled. Christian didn't show it in the product, but one capability that we also have is predictive analytics. So for a given transaction, let's say a given sales order, we can predict, is this going to be delivered on time, right? Or we can predict, when is this going to be delivered? And so you can better manage the communications with the customers, better manage, again, the expedition of those orders, and as such, hopefully drive down that amount of canceled orders, again, making your customers happier, making the process faster. Inefficient collections. So again, Christian showed the example with the payment reminders. This could be not just the reminders, but the entire communication, and you'd be able to see this through the data. Maybe before you've secured, leading up to securing a promise to pay date, but maybe also after that's been established, following up and making sure that it's actually adhered to. You could think about balancing different teams. You could think about automation for those reminders. There's a couple of different steps. Again, like Christian showed, you can use simulation to test those different hypotheses and see, in terms of time, in terms of cost, in terms of productivity, which ones actually provide the highest ROI. This would ultimately increase your cash flow, increase your customer satisfaction, and again, drop that potential for the canceled orders. And then lastly, for compliance, which Christian did mention that one example where we missed an order approval step. But if you look at this even more holistically with the different requirements that you have as a business, either brought on you by external regulation or by internal policies that you've established, you can check for conformance. So if you do have an established BPMN model or something in Visio that we could use to turn into a BPMN model, you can say, okay, this is how the process is supposed to operate. Or even in mining, you could say only these top 10 variants of the process are the ways that are approved to run through the process. You can start looking at non-conformance. You can end up driving down your SLA violations. You can improve sustainability if certain steps of the process are more ASG compliant, or you can lower the amount of data breaches that you have. So overall, a number of different ways that you can improve the order to cash process. Again, this is just representative. There are many more options. I'll echo what Christian said. This isn't that difficult to get started. If you do have if you do want to just test this out, see how it works for you, see if you do need the maturity, we don't think you will, to be able to come to value. Please reach out to us. We'd be happy to do a proof of value on your data to show you some of the improvements that you can make.
Yeah. And really, to point here, what Max is showing you, you see, everybody knows order to cash is such an important process for each company. It brings them money, and you see, there's really a lot of things what you can consider and check and optimize. It's not just one thing. So there's a lot of opportunities to get insights and drive optimizations, and yeah, like it could change a lot in your company by producing money, making customers more successful or happier. So yeah, one more time, call to action, reach out to us. Let's start small, show your management or your team the value, what kind of insights we can create, and then growing step by step. There's no big thing, no big IT project over several months. Like that's a POE we handle in 1 week. So that shouldn't be a big effort on your side. We know daily business, but it's, I think, real worth to try it and push it, and then going on the next level.
Yep. So this brings us to the end of the presentation portion of the webinar. If you have any questions, please, we're around. We're happy to answer them right now. Please put them in the Q&A box if so. I see that one's already come in, so we'll take that one. But again, we're happy to answer more. Please keep them coming. So the first question is, how does iGrafx work with specific order to cash software like HighRadius, Esker, Blackline, etc.? So there's really two ways that I see them working together. The first is, as Christian mentioned, these systems also produce log files, so you could actually mine the performance of these systems. They're custom made, it's not a generic ERP, but they still have the log files that we could ingest, understand what's the performance of those systems, understand where there still might be improvement, even though you're using a specialized system. And then also maybe you're considering making some sort of configuration change or reorganizing or re-architecting the process or making a change to one of the applications within a system like HighRadius, and you want to test that out. So that's also a case for simulation where you could say, if we make this change in one of those systems, what do we expect the impact to be based on the data that we have from process mining?
Maybe to add, because you mentioned simulation, and that may be what other point I would point to show or mention. If you want to test something, you can test it for sure in real or something. But you have to think about, you have to configure it, you have to evaluate and monitor over the time and so on. That could really make a big delay. A simulation, you can do quickly some changes and run scenarios very quickly instead of, well, let's change the process and test it for 6 months if it's worse. If you have this time, but usually the business competition is very quick, so you need ways to get really quickly insights and data, how you proceed best. And that's really simulation can do. Change some things, get the results, compare it, and run, instead of doing for each change a POV and try it and wait until you can get some insights. So that's really could also be a game changer.
Thank you, Christian. I have another question here. What's the difference between what you've shown and digital twins or DTOs? So just for anybody in the audience that isn't familiar with the term digital twin or DTO, digital twin of an organization, it's basically seeking to make a virtual replica of your physical operations. So your order to cash process in this case is executed with the physical systems that you have, with the people that are executing it, with the different parties that are involved, like your customers. And the purpose of the digital twin is to create that virtual model so that then you can optimize it. So in that case, what we've shown actually is an important piece of building that digital twin of your organization. Two really critical capabilities to build a digital twin are that analysis capability, so that you can understand the reality of your operations through real-time monitoring. So that's something that we can do with process mining. Christian mentioned it's always better to start with a file at first because that's the quickest path to value, but you can ultimately create live connections to the systems to get updates. So that monitoring is really important for the digital twins, as well as the simulation. You want to be able to make the changes to that virtual model, so you don't need to make up that upfront investment, and unfortunately figure out that like it just created a new bottleneck, or it really didn't generate the ROI that you thought it would. And so these this really is, I would say, maybe what we've shown today, like, 70-80% of what you need for that digital twin of the organization already. There's some additional capabilities that we have in the iGrafx platform that we didn't show that round it out. But yeah, process intelligence, what we showed today, would absolutely a core piece of building that digital twin of your organization. Have another one. How would I go about getting my team involved in this software with iGrafx? How can it integrate with our existing systems? So we've mentioned a couple times, there's different ways you can get involved, but probably the best way is to engage with us so that we can do a POV. Let's make it real for you. Let's look at your actual data. Let's look at your order to cash process or a piece of that process, maybe invoicing and collections like we showed today. Maybe it's upstream in more of the order management portion of it. We'll pick a piece that makes sense, do an analysis, get some insights, and again, help you secure buy-in internally for investment in larger scale projects. In terms of
Maybe
integration,
quickly to add something here, Max, because we say
yeah.
If we get involved, the best way is really to show the value, and we are happy to support you that. But of course, if you say then I'm done, we show the value, and we want to go for the next processes and want to do it by own, we have here pretty nice ways like our iGrafx University, what I would quickly to mention, where we have free trainings where you can get insights. There's even also standard exercises, how I look on what perspectives I look on the process with mining. So there's different ways, to get the knowledge to drive that by own. But also, again, in the later stage, we could also support you by experts with professional service. We have very experienced partners. If you're looking for other very specific processes, there's different way. But yeah, let's start with us, and there's also different ways how you can extend that and get more knowledge into it.
Yep. And just answering the second part of that question, how can it integrate with the existing systems? Like Christian mentioned, pretty much every modern IT system is capable of generating these event logs that you need for process mining. Certainly your core, I know this is an order to cash webinar, but this applies across the business, so it could be an ERP, it could be a human resources management system, it could be a CRM like Salesforce, really all of those core systems that execute the core transactions in your business, prevent these create these event logs. So in that case, the integration initially, our recommendation is just to do an export again and do that analysis, get a quick win. But ultimately, you can do an integration via API so that you can continue to pull that data on an ongoing basis from those systems.
And there are some connectors prepared what we can use for the connection for real-time synchronization. But yeah, like Max said, for the first and easiest, quickest win, export, import, drag and drop. And then, we can talk about the integrations with standard connectors, what is also provided with the solution.
Excellent. So I'll maybe end here, but if there is another question that comes in while I'm ending, happy to answer it. But just wanted to say thank you so much, everyone, for taking time today. We hope it was insightful. We hope you learned something about how we can improve order to cash, how we can use process mining to do so, process mining and simulation, that is. And Christian, thank you so much for leading us through, great demo. Really got to do a deep dive in the tool, see how quick and easy it is to get started. So certainly appreciate it. Christian, is there anything you want to say before we sign off?
No, really thank you for interest, and please reach out to me if you have any question or you really want to try it. I'm happy to support you. And if we're closing, have a nice day and hopefully talk to you soon, guys.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of the week, everyone.